the heart of the Appalachian Mountains there lay an old and forsaken mine, hidden beneath a shroud of eerie mist. This mine, known as the Blackwood Abyss, was a place where darkness and despair coiled together like venomous serpents. Many locals believed it to be cursed, and none dared to venture inside its gaping maw after sunset. One gloomy evening, curiosity got the best of Thomas Whitman, a solitary geologist who had come to study the region's unique rock formations. Armed with a dimly lit lantern and his unwavering resolve, he descended into the abyss. The entrance swallowed him whole, and the echoes of his footsteps faded into the abyssal depths. As Thomas delved deeper into the mine, he marveled at the intricacy of the mineral deposits and the patterns etched into the walls. Hours turned into days, and he lost track of time. But as he ventured deeper, the mine's malevolence began to reveal itself. Strange noises echoed through the passages, whispers of long-forgotten miners and the mournful cries of those who had perished within its confines. Shadows danced ominously on the walls, and the lantern's feeble light seemed to flicker in response to some unseen presence. Thomas's sense of direction warped in the subterranean labyrinth, and he found himself hopelessly lost. His lantern's feeble light barely illuminated his immediate surroundings, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to move independently. Panic set in as he realized he couldn't find his way back to the surface. He was trapped. Days turned into weeks, and Thomas's mind began to fray. He subsisted on meager rations he had brought with him, but they were dwindling fast. His only companions were the ghostly apparitions that taunted him, whispering tales of anguish and despair. The walls seemed to close in on him, and the darkness grew more suffocating with each passing day. Thomas's once determined spirit now waned as he faced the inescapable reality of his predicament. He began to scrawl his final thoughts on the walls, a grim testimony to his descent into madness. Months passed, and the world outside the mine had long given up on Thomas. He had become one with the abyss, a wretched soul consumed by the darkness. One fateful day, his lantern's feeble flame finally extinguished, leaving him in complete darkness. In the pitch-black void, Thomas's last breath escaped him unheard and unnoticed. His body was never found, and the legend of the cursed Blackwood Abyss endured, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked beneath the earth. And so the man who had dared to explore the depths of the mine met a sad and lonely end, forever entwined with the haunting mysteries of the Blackwood Abyss. Deep within the desolate heart of Nevada, where the sun's rays scarcely touched the earth, lay an abandoned silver mine known as the Silverton Caverns. It was a place of dread whispered about in hushed tones among the locals. Nobody dared to venture near it, for tales of misfortune and misery surrounded this cursed place. Our story begins with John Harper, an adventurer with a heart as daring as the mines he sought to explore. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a thirst for treasure, John set his sights on the Silverton Caverns. Armed with a flashlight and a pickaxe, he entered the mine one eerie evening, a chill settling in his bones. The mine was a labyrinth of winding tunnels, an underground maze that swallowed the light and echoed with ominous whispers. As John ventured deeper, he felt the oppressive weight of the earth pressing down upon him, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Hours turned to days, and John's supplies dwindled. Panic set in as he realized he was hopelessly lost. His flashlight's beam revealed walls adorned with the desperate etchings of those who had met a similar fate. Loneliness gnawed at his sanity, and the silence of the mine was broken only by his own labored breaths and the distant echoes of his frantic calls for help. The walls seemed to close in on him, and the darkness became his only friend and foe. Days turned into weeks, and John's hope waned. He rationed his meager supplies, but they were never enough. Starvation clawed at him, and he began to hallucinate, seeing shadowy figures in the corners of his dimming flashlight's beam. As his strength waned, John knew he was facing a slow, agonizing death in the bowels of the earth. He scribbled a final, trembling message on the mine wall, a heart-wrenching farewell to a world he would never see again. Time became a blur, and John's light finally faded into nothingness. The Silverton Caverns claimed him, and his cries for salvation went unheard. He became another sad chapter in the mine's grim history, a man lost in the depths, his name forgotten by all but the unforgiving darkness. And so, the man who sought fortune and adventure in the heart of the Silverton Caverns met a tragic and lonely end, swallowed by the very depths he had dared to explore. The mine was a gaping maw in the heart of the mountains, a dark and treacherous abyss that swallowed all who dared to enter. It was a place of whispered legends, a place where men went to seek their fortunes and lost their souls instead. Henry had heard the tales, the stories of gold and silver veins that ran deep within the mine's bowels. He was a man driven by desperation, a debt-ridden soul who saw the mine as his last chance at redemption. With a pickaxe in one hand and a lantern in the other, he descended into the abyss, leaving the world of sunlight and fresh air behind. For days, he toiled in the mine, his muscles aching, his body covered in sweat and grime. He chipped away at the unforgiving rock, searching for that glimmering promise of wealth that had lured him there. The deeper he went, the more the mine seemed to close in around him, its walls pressing in like the embrace of some ancient, malevolent beast. One fateful evening, as Henry was deep within the bowels of the earth, his lantern flickered and died. Panic set in as darkness enveloped him, a darkness so complete that it felt like a living entity, suffocating and oppressive. He fumbled for his matches and managed to strike one, illuminating a small circle of the void. But the trembling flame revealed something that sent shivers down his spine. Etched on the walls of the mine were crude drawings, grotesque caricatures of twisted faces and contorted bodies. They seemed to dance in the flickering light, their expressions frozen in agony. Henry's heart pounded in his chest as he realized that these were not the work of some bored miner, but the desperate creations of a soul lost in the same inky abyss. He pressed on, his pickaxe striking the rock with renewed urgency. Hours turned into days, and days into weeks. But the precious metals remained elusive. The mine became his prison, its walls his only companions. He spoke to them, his voice echoing in the suffocating darkness, as if the rocks themselves were his confidants. One night, as Henry lay down to rest, he heard a whisper. At first, he dismissed it as a figment of his exhausted mind, but then it came again, a faint, ethereal voice that seemed to originate from the very depths of the mine. It called his name, a soft, plaintive sound that sent shivers down his spine. "Who's there?" Henry stammered, his voice trembling. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, and with it came a spectral light, a ghostly glow that illuminated the chamber. In the feeble radiance, Henry saw her, a young woman, her face gaunt and pale, her eyes hollow with despair. She wore the tattered remnants of a dress from a bygone era. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice trembling like a fragile bird. "I've been trapped here for so long, lost in the darkness." Henry's heart went out to her and he approached cautiously. "How did you get here? What happened?" Tears welled in her eyes as she recounted her tragic tale. She had been a miner's wife, waiting for her husband to return from the depths of the earth. But he never did. And in her desperation to find him, she had ventured into the mine herself, only to become ensnared in its cruel grasp. Henry promised to help her, to find a way out of the wretched mine together. But as they journeyed deeper into the labyrinthine tunnels, they discovered that escape was an illusion, a cruel mirage that taunted them at every turn. The mine seemed to shift and change, its passages rearranging themselves like a malevolent puzzle. Days turned into weeks, and their hope began to wane. The ghostly woman's form grew fainter, her cries more desperate, and as their lanterns sputtered and died, Henry and the woman found themselves trapped in eternal darkness. In the end, they clung to each other, two lost souls bound by the mine's unrelenting grip. They whispered their regrets, their dreams, and their fears into the abyss, knowing that there would be no rescue, no salvation. In the cold, unforgiving embrace of the earth, their voices faded, their existence erased by the relentless passage of time. And so, the mine claimed 2 more victims, adding their spirits to the legion of lost souls that haunted its depths. For beneath the earth's embrace, there was no escape, no redemption, only the eternal torment of the damned. Nestled within the rugged embrace of the Rocky Mountains lay the Whispering Hollows Mine, a place whose name struck fear into the hearts of all who heard it. Whispers of tragic tales and sinister occurrences shrouded this forsaken place, but none sent shivers down the spine like the legend of Henry Davenport. Henry was an aging geologist whose obsession with the secrets hidden beneath the earth led him to the dreaded mine. Armed with a lantern and his unwavering determination, he ventured into the depths one fateful evening, his heavy breaths the only sound in the oppressive silence. The tunnels of the Whispering Hollows mine stretched like the veins of some ancient, malevolent creature. As Henry delved deeper, he felt the weight of the earth pressing upon his shoulders, a relentless force that threatened to crush his spirit. Hours turned into days, and the mine's cruel labyrinth claimed his sense of direction. Panic set in as he realized he was trapped, the faint echo of his own voice his only companion. The walls seemed to close in around him, their jagged contours like the teeth of a monstrous beast. Henry subsisted on dwindling rations, but they were never enough. Loneliness gnawed at his sanity, and the shadows danced in sinister glee as his lantern's light flickered ominously. He could swear he heard voices in the darkness, whispering tales of agony and despair. Days turned into weeks, and Henry's hope dwindled. He etched his final thoughts onto the cold, unforgiving walls, a testament to his descent into madness. His world shrank to the dim circle of light cast by his lantern, and he became a mere shadow of his former self. Months passed, and the world outside the mine had long forgotten Henry Davenport. He had become a ghostly inhabitant of the Whispering Hollows, a relic of the mine's tragic history. One fateful day, as his lantern sputtered and died, Henry knew the end was near. In the suffocating darkness, he drew his last breath, a mournful sigh that was swallowed by the abyss. His body was never found, and his name faded into obscurity. Just another victim of the cursed mine. And so the man who had dared to defy the Whispering Hollows mine met a sad and lonely end, forever entwined with the horrors that lurked beneath the earth.